welcome this morning to this presentation. I'd like to thank Vern Bissell for inviting me to participate in this important subject about science and science education here. My name is Dr. Alan Jang. I graduate as Vern, Dr. Bissell here, who graduated from the Pepperdine University. Pepperdine just recently concluded the Pepperdine Bible Lectureship over the past few days. It concluded yesterday evening. And of course, it's a gorgeous view. I was born and raised as a Buddhist in a Confucianist, Taoist, Buddhist family. I didn't become a Christian until I went to Pepperdine. And at the age of 20, I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. I attended the Ananda Temple off New Hampshire in the Worcester district. So I was raised, and there's no one in my family, no relatives, no brothers, sisters, no relatives who accepted the Lord Jesus Christ in my family. I was the very first one. So I didn't have this influence of being influenced by family members. In fact, I had to go counter to family members in order to accept Jesus Christ. And it was by going to Pepperdine when I had professors who loved the Lord and who shared with me scientific evidence that the Bible is accurate, is true, is reliable, that I was able to accept Jesus Christ because of this here. They just recently concluded the series here on the cruciform, Living the Lie of the Jesus Story at Pepperdine. There's one thing that Pepperdine has taught me is to how to think. I remember I took a course under Dr. Frank Pack, got his doctorate from Vanderbilt University. He was chairman of the religion department at that time. And he had a reading list. I took the reading list to a Christian bookstore. And I could not find half the books. And the person in the bookstore, because I asked him, can you help me find these books here? I'm a non-Christian. I don't have a Christian background. So I wouldn't know who's liberal, who's conservative, or what. And the Christian bookstore looked at it and says, he said, where is this from? I said, Pepperdine. He said, isn't Pepperdine a Christian college? He said, all these sources here are liberal sources. And I didn't know what that meant. But Dr. Frank Pack taught me. He says, you need to hear the evidence for the conservative. You need to hear the evidence for the liberals. You need to hear the evidence pro and con in order for you to be able to answer such questions. If you brainwash yourself to only traditional conservative arguments, you won't know how to respond to the world who will have criticism. So they taught me how to think, how to demand evidence. Oops. Yeah. I'm telling you a tale of two pediatricians. My daughter, when she was 1 year of age, we went to see her pediatrician. And my wife asked the pediatrician, doctor, what's this little indentation about underneath her ear? And the doctor just said, oh, those are just leftover from her gill slits. And my wife said, well, what did he say? He said, gill slits. And my wife said, well, what does he mean? And then I said, let me explain. So I went in the hallway, explained to her that what they claimed was that we have gill slits. In our embryonic development, we have gills. This is taught here in an AP biology book that states this very thing. We have gill slits in a high school biology textbook. This is an AP book showing you the diagrams here of gill slits. But the truth of the matter is we don't have gills and they're not slits. They're properly known as pharyngeal arches. And they develop into the upper palate and tonsils and perform no respiratory function at any time whatsoever. They're not slits, they're not gills. Why do we call them gill slit? Because they perpetuate the myth of evolution, that we evolve in lower life creatures. Then, when my daughter was in middle school, different pediatrician now, the first pediatrician, the evolutionist, he developed some mental problems, and we heard he went to some problems and he was no longer available. Well, we had a second physician at Kaiser. And at Kaiser Permanente in Pasadena, as I was there, I was talking, and I saw a notice posted in the bulletin board in the doctor's office, and the doctor wrote an article to the Pasadena Star News advocating why we should hear scientific evidence pro and con evolution. And I read that, and he didn't know I was a science teacher, so I asked him about this article. And he told me that he was recently puzzled by all the news about creation and evolution. So he said he made a promise to himself that he's going to resolve this issue. He said for 1 year he read 60 books from cover to cover. He said, I'll give every book, the best book you can find on evolution, and the best book you could find on creation. He said he was surprised. The scientific evidence was stronger for creation than is for evolution. So which is it? Gill slits or creation? The first pediatrician or the second? How would you decide this here? And the invitation from Vern was to let's explore these things here. And this is my talk here, Facts and Faith Preparing Kids for Scientism Assault in Education here. My objective is not to prove the theory of evolution is wrong, even though I think it is basically incorrect. My goal is not to prove that the Bible is right, even though I hold that it is. But my assignment here is based upon the title I was given, is to point out that the way evolution and attitudes is often taught in public schools, some Christian schools, Catholic schools, university, Christian colleges. I had a student, his name was Pat, he played in the basketball team at an old school of mine. He came from Chaminade, a Catholic school. And he says that at our school, we're taught that evolution is a fact and we evolved from apes. I said, well, what about creation? Oh, we get that in theology class. There's a compartmentalization. He says, in science, all we're taught is only the evidence for evolution. In the theology class, they learn about creation. I said, but do you hear any scientific evidence for creation? He said, no. We're just taught that God created Adam and Eve and the stories like that here. The way we are teaching evolution and attitudes you see in the public schools, in televisions and movies, I want you to say is bad education and promotes closed-mindedness, blind faith in scientism. Scientism means man is the measure of all things. Instead, the Bible being seen trustworthy, man decide what's right and wrong. The problem with that is what man says is right today may be wrong in the future, and what we say is okay today was used to be condemned in the past. And it promotes secularism. We have to understand this. Not everyone who wears the white lab coat that has a thick rimmed glass and has the pocket protectors are scientific. Actually, I was going to wear a lab coat here. My wife said, don't wear a lab coat. And I said, but it looks so scientific. My wife said, no, if you're in a medical conference, you can wear that, but not this. You're a teacher, dress like a teacher. I said, okay, I'll dress like a teacher. So here I am. But we had some scientists are unscientific. There are people who have, after their name, BS, MS, PhD in geology, who are less scientific than many of you here. Because they don't have a scientific outlook on life. They're closed-minded. They already made up the mind and they don't want to hear evidence. But in problem science, some of you are more scientific than some who are supposedly Christian and who are scientific. My goal is to promote, we want more honest, the theme of the talk today, more honest scientific approach to life and problem solving. Bottom line is like the tie here. We want, like they say in Coke slogan, the real thing. The real thing, that's what it's all about. You need to demand open inquiry, demand evidence. And the elements of all good learning, all good teaching is we need to teach things that are interesting to kids. If we teach things that's strictly by the book, sometimes we have to be honest, it's kind of dry, it's kind of boring. But sometimes by telling stories from life, or telling things that are current events, we can tie things in to show people how it's relevant for you today. How it's important for you to know these things here. We must make complicated scientific high-power ideas simple enough for kids to understand, or the average person to understand. We must make it palatable, easy to chew. We must have balance, the Socratic dialogue, pros and cons. The worst thing I can do as a science teacher is to present only the evidence for creation and not point out any evidence for evolution or something like that here. When I was exploring, after I became a Christian at the age of 20 at Pepperdine, I was still an evolutionist until I was 28. I didn't see the incongruity. I said, okay, God, that's how God made us. I just assumed it because I didn't know any better. I went to the public school all my life. I never doubted evolution. To me, evolution was a fact. I never questioned my textbooks. If it says it must be true. My teacher said it was true. I believed them. But a Socratic dialogue, to hear pros and cons, then you can weigh things to see if these things will stand. You need to have teaching by qualified individuals. One day I came home, friends, teaching at my old school. I turned on the television. I saw a debate. The debate was a guy who's a PhD in biology arguing the evidence for evolution, debating a Baptist pastor. I said, oh, come on. Why don't they have a PhD biologist who's a Christian against a PhD biologist who's an evolutionist? Instead of a PhD biologist against a Baptist pastor. Not putting down any Baptist pastor, but you're sort of like arguing on different playing fields. We need to have qualified individuals who knows both left and right, who knows evolution and who knows creation. And science is something that's testable, repeatable, and verified. That's what we want in our teachings. My background, just so you know where, I got my teaching credential in both physical science and life science, which is why I could teach physics, chemistry. I taught chemistry for 12 years, taught physics, and I taught biology, AP honors of biology, and all this for many, many years. Earned it at Cal State LA, State College. I avoid putting the name of the college because, believe it or not, I had people in the past audience from people from American Lay and other, and they track things down, and you find out also horrible things written about you. So I don't know who's going to be in the audience. I taught, I've been teaching for 39 years, mostly in the public school. So I know public school. I've been teaching public school far longer than I've been teaching the Christian school. I know what I'm talking about. I serve as a science department chairperson at 2 public high schools. I started, the science at every school I've been to, every one I taught at. And I taught college for 10 years at a secular college. So I know college level teaching as well. For the American Chemical Society, I was the representative for Southern California. I would attend all the meetings, conferences, promote and encourage people to join the American Chemical Society. In 1993, I was selected by the Lawrence Hall of Science at UC Berkeley as a National Honor Roll science teacher. I was flown out to Congress, met all the congressmen who were given an award as being, at that time, one of the best science teachers around. I used to be able to, before we had all the electronic gizmos and iPad, I would act out atoms and things like that. And do that. Now, the things I do look really stupid now. Because now they just hit a button and they can have animation. Before, I had to act it out. So a lot of things that got me the honor, animation, now I would be embarrassed to do some of those things now. And I was selected, by the Claes Nobel, the grandnephew of Alfred Nobel, the Nobel Prize Award founder, given this honor at UCLA. I have a Doctor of Naturopathy. There's a reason I'm sharing all this with you. I'll tell you in just a moment here. I taught for the Red Cross for 26 years. I'm certified as a law enforcement instructor. I teach handcuffing techniques, arrest control techniques, baton techniques, so forth here. Certified Tai Chi instructor. Certified at one time as the United States Chess Federation chess coach. I supervise chess tournaments locally, large areas. And I'm also certified by the United States Professional Tennis Association, USPTA. And I taught community service tennis as well. Why am I sharing all this? Because I know education. I know what makes good teaching. My wife says, Alan, you're born to be a teacher. You always want to be teaching something. In fact, my latest kick is I just started something called Air Gun University. Air gun, BB gun, pellet guns, and high power stuff. If any of you guys want to take courses free, teach you all the ins and outs about air guns, pellet guns. She said, you just can't stop teaching. You're always teaching something. But I believe in evolution all my life till one day I was shaken at Pepperdine University. I'm not a Christian. But I attended a lecture by Dr. Dean, who's formerly professor of biology. Apparently he passed away. And of course, I believe millions of years ago, untold number of half humans, half apes roamed this earth. They died and they are fossilized. And he said, if you were to get all the fossils of supposed half man and half ape in the entire world, and all the museums, all the private collection, all the colleges in the entire world, you can lay them on two long tables. Two long tables here. So the thing is, I said, that can't be. That can't be. Edwards versus Aguilar, Supreme Court decision, 1987, said, no evidence for creation science or intent evidence for creation science or intent may not be taught in the public school. Note what it said. Evidence. You may not present evidence. They mean, I have something to show you. No, you may not show it. It didn't say you can't teach theology of life. It says no evidence. If you have evidence that there's a God, if you have evidence that the Bible is true, if you have evidence for the intelligence, you can't share it. Isn't this anti-science? I thought science means that we hear all the evidence. But it's okay to teach that on the right. Where's the evidence for that? All right. What can you safely teach? You see this evolution of the whale series. Can you teach this? The story of whale evolution? Yeah, you can teach that in the public school. But can you teach the fact that questions these stories? That what you really have are partial skeletons, and that the bones in the skeleton here were not found with the others here, and they're partial, and that all you really found was part of the occipital orbit here and part of the mandible. That's all you found. Can you teach that, the contrary to it? No, you can't. I taught some of this in the public school, and I was called into the principal's office and said that we heard, because there were students who are children whose parents are members of the People for the American Way, which forbids teaching of it. And says that, I hear you're teaching things contrary. I said, I'm just teaching them science. I'm just teaching them pro and con. I'm not teaching creationism. I'm just teaching the strengths and weaknesses of evolution. He said, well, I understand you're not allowed to teach that. I said, so here's a journal I have, a scientific journal. That questions, I can't share the scientific journal? Nope, can't do that. Oh, there's a table here. See, now I got here. Okay, you lay them on two tables. Now it makes it a little prettier. What you saw was just the rough draft here. Okay. Dr. Dean, see, he one time shocked the audience as a distinguished visiting professor of biology at the University of Southern California. There was an audience, about 250, and I was in the audience, and everyone was talking, and he caught their attention by just pointing out, how many of you guys believe the story of Adam and Eve? And people said, what? And people start hushing down, and he explained that the story of creation of Adam and Eve is actually very scientific. He says that if you were to create a woman from man, where's the most scientific place to pull the person from? The rib. Because the blood is primarily produced in the bone marrow of the flat bones and the long bones. The ribs and like the femur and humerus. But you can't take the femur, the humerus, because then what's the guy going to walk on? What's he going to be able to throw? He wouldn't have an arm, he wouldn't have a leg. But every so often, a man or a woman is born with an extra rib. And if you remove the rib, no loss. And from the stem cells, you can turn certain genes on, and you create, theoretically, a person. Scientifically, the most logical place would be a rib. But of course, how would the people in the Bible time, thousands of years ago, have known that? Unless, what convinced me that there's a God, because I didn't believe in God, is that there's certain things in the Bible that could not have been written unless there's a true God. If it just has like a bunch of superstition, you have your God. That's what my dad says. He said, my dad says, the white man have their God, we have our own God. My father said, passed away in China. My observation, Dr. Waitaki, Cal State LA. I'm sitting in the class in physical anthropology dealing with human evolution. She said, through a series of myriads, countless number of beneficial mutations, mankind evolved from lower life form to what we are today. Then I remember a student raised a hand, sitting in the front row and in the right side. Can you give us an example of a beneficial mutation? And Dr. Waitaki stopped, paused, and they said, actually, we've never documented an undisputed example of beneficial mutation. Myriads, countless numbers. Can you name one? Can't name one. And then another student raised his hand and asked, well, what about sickle cell anemia? That's a sickle cell on the left right there. And she shook her head, she smiled, she says, well, anyone who knows anything about sickle cell knows that's not a beneficial mutation. You get rid of malaria by clearing swamps and the breeding ground. Instead of evolving a mutation that will kill most people before they turn the age of 30. That's not a beneficial mutation. And at that time, Lucy was discovered. You guys probably all know about Lucy, the Australopithecine. They had a traveling exhibit. It was at the LA County Museum of Natural History. We're given extra credit if we went there and took notes on it. So I went there as a college student, and I saw the model. They had a model of the reconstructed skull of Lucy and a chimpanzee, and I look at like forever. I saw absolutely no difference between them. I said, looks just like a chimpanzee skull, same size, same angle, same dimension, everything. Then later on I realized that was not Lucy's skull. No. That was a reconstructed skull. There was actually only a few bones. But we weren't told that. And see, in the class as physical anthropology, she mentioned that in talking about different people, it says that the Asian people migrated from the Middle East. And I says, wait a minute, I remember some Christian was telling me about that. Well, some story like Babel. Being Asians, we came from the Middle East? That sounds like consistent with the Bible. Now I'm a biology teacher. I'm in a public school. And I've been teaching for decades. Well, probably about 1 decade or 1 or 2 decades. I've been teaching for 39 years. And about how, the viceroy butterfly imitates the coloration of the monarch butterfly. We're told that the monarch's very bitter tasting, but this one evolved identical coloration to food birds not to eat it. My teacher taught me, I assume it's true. Then I'm sitting there in my prep here, I open up the LA Times, and it mentioned that scientists at San Diego decided to test it to see if it was true. I said, wait a minute. We didn't test to see if it's true. I thought it was already true. I thought it was a given. I thought it was already proven. I found out to decide if it was true. And he found out that instead of saying that this tastes bad, this tastes good, they both taste bad. And I said, I've been teaching this because that's what I was told. And found out it was not true. And it's not an example of Batesian mimicry. But it's still taught in many circles today. And I've been teaching you guys, maybe you know the story about the moth here. Yes. How this moth in England, during the British Industrial Revolution, when the bark of the tree was covered with soot, that which was previously light colored became dark color, so it would be hidden from predation from the birds, and it would be favored over the light colored moth, which were the downfall. And that's what I believe was true. Then I was stunned. Jerry Coyne, professor of biology at the University of Chicago, published in Nature magazine, November 5th, not so black and white. He says that he found out that that's simply not true at all. I remember seeing reel-to-reel tapes, a long time ago. Reel-to-reel tape in my training at Cal State LA about these moths, the pepper moth here, how they would land here. And I found the whole thing was staged. I found out they do not land on bark. That Mr. Kittowell, publishing Scientific American, he actually got that and glued it on. These are dead ones. Got it and glued it on, take pictures of it. Because in reality, they found out that these creatures are active at night, not during the daytime, and they never land on the barks of trees. They were glued on to try to prove evolution. And the article in Scientific American said that this was the best proof of evolution that we have. And Jerry Coyne, an evolutionist, says when he found out this was not true, he said it was the same way I felt when I first learned there was no Santa Claus. It was a heartbreaker. And I'd say that, why am I teaching these to the kids? I've been teaching these things as being true because I was told it's true. After I was selected as a National Honor Roll teacher, I had an AP biology teacher from LAUSD. He said, can I interview you? And then we're talking here, and then he made a comment that, therefore, that's why humans have the most chromosomes. I said, what? He said, that's why we have the most chromosomes. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, we're the most advanced creature because we have the most chromosomes. Simple creature, not too many chromosomes. We have the most chromosomes. That's why we're the most intelligent. I looked at him. I was stunned. I looked at him. I said, no, we don't. And he looked at me and stunned just what he said. Well, what do you mean? He said, humans don't have the most chromosomes. He said, we don't? I said, no. There's the geometric moth, there's the radiolarian, the protist. They have more chromosomes than us. A dog has 78 chromosomes. We have only 46. He said, well, he says, and he's an AP biology. He's been teaching for 10 years, teaching AP biology. And he said, well, that's what my college professor taught me. You see how the cycle goes? We learn error and we keep perpetuating. Even myself, I've been teaching things that were wrong, not intentionally. I just didn't know any better. Then one day, while I was teaching in the public school, a former high school science teacher, now working for Pasadena Unified, walked in and heard me talk a lecture. And he mentioned how the coelacanth crawled on the land and evolved and became an amphibian. And then I mentioned to him that we discovered these things. These are found in deep water. They live like 800 to 1,000 feet below. You bring them to the surface, they explode, their eyes pop out. Why would they want to be crawling onto land for? If they crawl onto land, they would die. Then he said, well, maybe conditions millions of years ago were different. And I said, well, wait a minute. I said that to adapt to a terrestrial life, to a deep sea life, wouldn't there be an anatomical change, adaptation, difference? And he said, yes. I said, do the fossil record of the coelacanth, do they look like the present day one? He said, yes. I said, in fact, they're identical. So there's no evidence that there were any adaptations, were there? Therefore, there's no evidence that they ever adapted to land. How can you say from deep sea water to surface living and there's no adaptations? Like that here. I was reading the LA Times during my break at my public school. And he talked about the discovery of the Methuselah gene. That if you turn on certain gene, turn off certain gene, you can actually cause a worm to triple its lifespan. They did it with rabbits, they did it with others. And then what shocked me was at the end of the article, it says, so the scientist says, the Bible story of Methuselah might not be so hard to believe after all. And I sat there, I says, Methuselah? Wow. Maybe he did live that long. And there's Terry Munday, who's an award-winning science educator. He goes around the country teaching teachers how to teach better science. I went up to him at lunchtime and I talked to him. And he said something privately to me. He said that he believed in evolution all his life. To the public school that he, back east, asked him to develop a curriculum for, teaching pro and con evolution. And he said, what do you mean pro and con? There's no pro and con. And he says, evidence against evolution. It says, there's no evidence against evolution. And he said, well, we're going to pay you a stipend during the summer to do research. He said, well, if you're going to pay me, well, I don't know where I'm going to find any material. He said, if I go to the library, I'm not sure if I'll find any material supporting creation. He went to the library, he said he was shocked at all the books of scientific evidence supporting creation. He was just blind, he just didn't know. After he read it, he said, he was shocked. He said that the evidence for creation was stronger than the evidence for evolution. He became a creationist, but he said, I don't want to talk too much about that. The Greater Los Angeles Science Teachers Association, I have a packet here. You might be shocked when you read this here. I attended a meeting at the Greater Los Angeles Teachers of Science Association, held at Bravo Medical Center by USC Medical Center. And they had on topic, a list of topics. Here's one on new attacks on evolution. I want to hear what that is. And then we sat there, other scientists, yeah, this problem with creation is those Christians and all that stuff. And the teacher, who's a professor, Kelsey Lumley, says, no, the attack is not coming from Christians. It's coming from atheists. And I was shocked. I took extensive notes. I was scribbling like crazy. Just read my notes here. All right. They said that the recent attack against evolution are not from Christians or theists. They're from the academic liberal left, especially from the University of Kentucky. There are scholars who are sociologists and psychologists who said that the theory of evolution, we're making up a lot of stories to explain things about life that actually just doesn't seem to be true. For example, they said that, okay, some of my students, you know this, about man the hunter, woman the homemaker theory. You guys know that. They're saying that as they did research, they found out the evidence doesn't support it. We're teaching women inferiority, that they didn't evolve the brain capacity as male. And they said that this simply isn't true. So we're reading about intellectual atheists who are pointing out the problems with evolution. And everyone in the audience was stunned because we thought we were going to bash those Christians. But found out it was the atheists who were now attacking evolution. I started to see as I'm exploring things, but I'm a little confused. I'm a Christian, but I still believe in evolution. Then I start reading about these things here, about continental drift. Of course, I've always been teaching. Alfred Wegener is the first one in the 1920s, came up with the idea of continental drift. Then I found out that Antonio Snyder came up with this idea 100 years earlier based upon studying the Bible. The Bible said in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and all the water was to get in one place. If all the water was to get in one place, I mean all the land had to be separately in another place. So how did the land get separated? Antonio Snyder, 100 years before Alfred Wegener, the meteorologist, came with the idea, said, if you look at the contour, how they fit, it says that they were fractured by the flood of Noah. But no one took him seriously because that's Bible, that's Christian. So no one took him seriously. All right. The Bible says in Genesis chapter 1, verse 30, and to all the beasts of the earth and all the birds in the sky and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything has the breath of life in it, I've given every green plant for food. Plants are the foundation, just like the Bible says. But in the late 1980s, early 1990s, taxonomists took green algae and moved it out of Kingdom Plantae and put it under Kingdom Protista. So that we put it in a different kingdom. And took blue-green algae, which has a nuclear body, and put it under Kingdom Monera. So that we can't say it's plants anymore, because now we say algae and blue-green algae are not plants. So just by a wave of the wand, by changing definitions, we make a Bible teaching which is supported by science to weaken the argument. Astrology, this is one of the things that greatly influenced me. Chinese people are very superstitious, I'm telling you. They're very, very superstitious. I can tell you a lot of funny stories, about Chinese people and what they believe about astrology. But the thing is, it was a universal religion. Everyone, you look at whether it be Egyptians, Romans, Greek, everyone believed in astrology. But surprisingly, only the Bible condemned it. The Bible says that they're set in the sky by God to mark seasons and times and to illuminate. I said to myself, just leaning back, if man wrote the Bible, I expect astrology to be in it because the most intellectual people in the ancient world were astrologers. But instead, we find it just the opposite. It had to come from a true living God, a revelation. Let's see. Here's a study that was done in Scientific Monthly, September 1954, the Troubled Science courses. As a professor of biology at Michigan State University, what he did found out was that when he surveyed the science students, he was shocked that so many science students at Michigan State University did not believe in evolution. They believe in creation. That is troublesome. He said the trouble is we're not teaching enough evolution. He gave a test to see how many of them believe in animism, believe in sun god, moon god, rain god, and all that kind of stuff. Very superstitious belief. So what he did was that 35 years later, he said, I'm going to repeat the experiment. I'm going to have a control group of college biology students, and I'm going to push, teach so much evolution. And this is a regular biology class. I'll just teach a normal curriculum. And watch, the one who had taught more evolution is going to be more objective, more honest, more sound thinking, less animistic. He did the study, and to his amazement, what he found out was the ones who were taught more evolution were more superstitious, believed more in animism. That's not what he expected. Okay. Another scientist, Professor Mickle at North Carolina State, said, well, maybe that's up in the north, but people down the south are not as well educated. People down the south are more religious. Maybe if we did the same experiment as in North Carolina State, where 86% of the students were from the south, I bet you now we can demonstrate the more evolution we teach, the more honest and objective they are. He did the same experiment, and the same thing happened. The class that was taught more evolution as facts were more superstitious. The ones that were more objective were the Christian students. They were more honest and more objective, contrary to his belief. Or how about what? Okay, that's the north, this is the south. How about the west? This is a study I did with one of my biology teacher, Mrs. Kita, the biology teacher, mother of Ethan Kita. And we did this study here, but we didn't publish it because if we published it back then, we probably would have got in a lot of trouble with the public school. Those are Christians, no religion. Those who are Buddhists, because there are a lot of Asians in my old school here. And when you look at the numbers here, the lower the number, the more superstitious they were. The higher the number, the less superstitious they were. And it found out that the Christians were the most honest, most objective individuals. The ones that had no religion were more superstitious, and the Buddhists were the most superstitious of all. So the atheists can't claim that religion's brainwashing them. By exposing them pro and con, they found out that they were actually more honest. Circumcision on the 8th day. Okay, how am I going for time? Am I... Okay. I remember, this is nothing that just shook my belief. I became more and more conservative as a believer as I studied these things here. The Bible says that on the 8th day, you're to circumcise your male child. They wonder why is it that Jewish women had 0 incidence of cervical cancer and Jewish men had 0 incidence of penile cancer. But other people had various levels of cancer. And when they asked Jesus that they eat the same food and the climate's all the same, the only difference was that Jews circumcised. They asked the Jewish people, why do you circumcise on the 8th day? He said, we don't know why. It's just that a true living God told us to do it on the 8th day. But why? So they did this study. They found out that on the 8th day, vitamin K and prothrombin, there should be an M right there, prothrombin, both blood clotting factor is the highest on the 8th day. How could the Jewish people have known that unless divine intelligence revealed it to them? So here I am, a person who was raised as a Buddhist, Buddhist atheist. I don't know what to believe, but I certainly didn't believe in God, and I never had a Bible. Up until the time I graduated from high school, I never even had a Bible. There was no Bible in the house. No one went, and I never went to church services, so I had no prior disposition. I just want to know the truth. That's what I want to know what's true. I can't explain this unless a true living God revealed it. Pros and cons. Dr. Richard Bliss, former director of science education, did a study at the Racine Unified School District. Here's a group of high school students taught evolution only. Here's a group of students taught pros and cons evolution and creation. Then after 1 year, they were given to see a test, found out the one who grew intellectually the most, who knew evolution the most, were those who were given pros and cons, because they learned to train their mind to think. The Bible says to teach your children two things, and you taught them well: to love the Lord with all of your heart, to have a compassion for others. To prepare your children as you consider a college. Parents, some Christian colleges don't teach the truth. Some Christian colleges don't teach you to think. They teach you only to believe what is popular, what's common. Some churches don't teach the truth. They teach the same thing. Stay informed. If you want to see prepare, you need to know these things. That's why I asked the parents to come back here. You need to know this. It's not the kid. You need to know it, because your parents are going to make the decision as to what colleges they're going to be going to. You need to read good materials from both sides, even if it's at a college level, popular level, it doesn't matter. You need to hear both sides so that you can know the arguments and share them with your children. You need to know, for example, when I was young, I was told the Grand Canyon took 120 million years to form. Then they said it took 60 million years to form. Then they said it took 20 million years to form. Then they said, scientists said it took only 5 million years to form. Then the most recent thing, they said it could have formed in less than 1 million years. What does it tell you? They don't really know. They have good ideas. But the thing is, we're taught when we're in high school and in college that these things are facts. We taught that life evolved in the ocean or in a pond. Dr. Stanley Miller, UC San Diego, dispute that. He says the evidence doesn't support it. LA Times, in an interview. He said, we all teach that life evolved by accident in a pond or a lake or in the ocean. He says, actually, there's no evidence to support it here. All right? But you don't hear that. All you hear is, yeah, that's what happened. All right? A book that I highly recommend is The Science of Evolution by Dr. William Stansfield. Dr. Stansfield is a professor of biology, was at Cal State LA, now professor of biology at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. He wrote a book called The Science of Evolution. I have the pages here. I have 2 copies of the book. And that is this. He states that actually the arguments for creation are actually good arguments. They're actually good arguments. And he said they actually do a good service because they help us rethink our position. But he said we don't like to talk about them. We don't like to talk about the possibility they may be. He's a very honest person. He says that a lot of the evidence for creation actually are very good arguments. We're told in the textbooks that life evolved on Earth about 3.5 billion years ago because of the discovery of cyanobacteria and other things, stromatolites. Today's Science and File. 2 scientists from MIT studying says, well, actually, those fossils of primitive algae might not even be fossils at all. They're just chemical stains, is all it is here. So why do we teach these things as facts when the scientists don't know for sure? And if you guys want to pick up a copy of this, how many of you guys been to the Petrified National Forest? Any of you guys been there? You go to Petrified National Forest, and all these logs petrified took millions of years to form. Oh yeah. You walk through here. Here's like the guide that they have here. Giant logs, self-guided tour. I photocopy one page. When you get to one station, know what it says. How did the trees of an ancient forest become fossilized? Millions of years. That's what it does. Now the very last sentence. The process of turning logs to stones may have only taken a few years. There it is in black and white. All right, United States government, Park Service here. Here it states here, you ask them, it says, well, given the right conditions, these trees could be fossilized in a matter of a few years. No, not hundreds of millions of years, but that's what we're taught to believe. It could have formed in just a couple of years, a few years. Here's the United States Park Service. You want to, don't take my word for it. Grab a copy, show it to your church. These things are, well, I don't know about oil and gas, formed during the Carboniferous 220, 250, 300 million years ago. All right, Nature magazine. They found natural oil deposits that are only about 4,500 years old. Natural gas, natural oil. And they examined it and said, well, gee, it's exactly like the composition of the oil from the Carboniferous. They're supposedly hundreds of millions of years old. They didn't deposit only a couple thousand years old. Nature magazine. But that's not what you hear in the class. All right? A lot of other stuff here. There's much that I don't have the time. Okay. I authored 2 books. I wrote this book, The La Brea Tar Pits, which is sold out. I'm practically out. A Future and Study Guide. And I recently have published available through Amazon, the Cantonese Yale Abbreviated Bible. This Bible is loaded with apologetics notes, science notes. Here it captures a lot of the reason why I end up believing in God, because of some of the things I mentioned in here. In the footnote, Bible says here, O Timothy, guard that which is committed to you. Avoid the profane babbling and opposition of science. Greek word gnosis, which is falsely so called. Already some by professing science deviate from the truth. Grace be with you. All right, Gnostics claim to have secret knowledge, like the 3rd century the Gospel of Judas. Okay. And we'll take a break and then we can open up some questions.